The implosion of FTX has given ammunition to crypto skeptics. It's kind of this I told you so moment for those who've been against crypto from the beginning. At the same time, many of those said skeptics see the case against crypto as larger than the failure of one of the biggest crypto exchanges on earth. To them, it's about utility and inherent value of crypto. It's about the concept. They don't actually buy the idea that you can use crypto to create an alternative financial system. Throughout this series, we've heard from the true believers who make passionate and extraordinary promises about crypto, that Bitcoin provides freedom because they, not a government, are in control of their money, for example. But there are also people out there who make it their mission to shine a light on what they see as the deficiencies. You're about to hear from 3 of those people, all of whom we spoke to before the FTX debacle. And even though we don't yet know the ultimate fallout from FTX's collapse, how much money is gone, what clients will recoup, or how or if it will ultimately undermine confidence in crypto, we know that the skeptics are already using it as yet another example to make their case. I gotta say, it's a little weird that this is our last episode.
In what way?
Well, we're making the case against crypto. We're talking to prominent voices who are anti-crypto.
Seems like a pretty good journalism thing to do, get both sides of the argument.
Right, it's a noble pursuit. It's a higher calling, right?
Yeah.
We're out there collecting information about both sides and presenting it in an even-handed way.
And we got to meet the guy from the OC.
How did you find yourself in this mess?
Yeah.
Because people know you as Ryan Francis Atwood from the OC. They know you as a cop.
Right. Yes.
On other shows.
Yes, on 2 separate shows where I played a cop. Yeah. How did I find myself in this mess? So I have a degree in economics from the University of Virginia, which I got a while ago, 2 decades ago. But over the pandemic, I had a lot of time on my hands. The short answer is a buddy of mine from college who has given me the worst financial advice of my life came to me in 2021 and said, you should buy some Bitcoin. And I said, okay, I think that's a red flag. Something might be up here. So I hadn't paid attention to cryptocurrency really ever up to that point. I took Gary Gensler, the head of the SEC's course that he taught on blockchain and crypto at MIT in 2019. He had made it available for free online, so I took it. 19 hours later, it was like I had a lot of information, but I had the same questions, which, to be honest, they started with the word itself, with language. I'm a storyteller. That's what I do for a living, and words have a lot of power. And cryptocurrencies aren't currencies by any reasonable economic definition. They're a poor medium of exchange, unit of account, and store of value. And so what they more closely resemble is a security. And securities are obviously regulated under American law. They're an investment of money in a common enterprise with the expectation of profit to be derived from the efforts of others. That's the 4 prongs of the Howey test, which is how we define securities under American law. I saw a massive unregulated securities market that was drawing in millions and millions of people who I don't think were aware of the potential fraud that could ensue, that could be happening right at that moment. And so, anyway, I reached. I got high one day, and I decided that I should write a book about crypto and fraud, which sounded like a really good idea when I was high. The next morning, sober, I realized I didn't actually know how to write a book. So then I reached out to this journalist, Jacob Silverman, who I had never met before, but I followed him on Twitter, and he followed me back. He had written an article called Even Donald Trump Knows Bitcoin is a Scam, which I thought was kind of funny and had brought together a few things that I was thinking about.
This is why we always need to have our DMs open.
My
Yes.
DMs are open.
Yeah. Anyway, I invited him to drinks and was like, hey, do you want to write a book about crypto and fraud? And he's like, my wife, they were about to have a pandemic baby. My wife and I had our pandemic baby earlier, so he was going on parental leave. So he's probably like, didn't have anything better to do. But he was like, yeah, sure. So
So it's funny that all of this kind of started in the pandemic for you, because that's actually when I started watching the OC.
No way.
Yeah, with my
You're a little
brothers.
late.
With my brothers, actually, it was very weird.
You're like so late.
I know. But I got there, which is the important thing.
That is the important thing.
But listening to you, it sounds like most of your objections lie in the cryptocurrency part of the cryptocurrency universe, the currency part. But how broad is your skepticism here? Like when you think about things like decentralized finance, like the promise of the blockchain, for example, do you see any merit or potential in those areas?
I think it's extremely difficult to tell right now. Until the dust settles on what I believe was effectively the largest Ponzi scheme in history by an order of magnitude. I know that's a bold claim, but I'm happy to back it up with facts and figures and all sorts of stuff. Until we see that settle and we see what's left, it's difficult to find hard numbers in crypto, as you guys probably know. But according to the Pew study that was done just this last month, they asked people, did your investment in crypto, the 40 million Americans who have bought crypto, 16% of the adult population, did your investment in crypto live up to your expectations? I think like 16% said it exceeded them, 30% said it was kind of what they expected, and like 45% said it was worse. So just starting there, you're looking at like a 3-to-1 split, right? With like 30% saying it was okay. We don't really know where it's going to go yet.
But if I'm optimistic, it sounds like you're open to it.
Yeah, exactly. I'm totally open. No. Yeah. I'm sorry. I couldn't tell if you were being sarcastic. I am open to it. I mean, I don't care about a distributed ledger, right? That does not animate my
Doesn't get your blood pumping.
I don't care.
Okay.
It's just a ledger. Like, if you can use it to further the things that crypto purports to do, then great. Right? I would love for our financial system, which has many, many flaws, to be better. I would like for it to be more inclusive. I would like for the fraud to be lessened. And I'd like for people to be able to transact easily, and particularly overseas between countries. But unfortunately, crypto, I don't think accomplishes any of those things.
I'm wondering how you think about what you're doing right now in the context of your identity, your professional identity, or your personal identity. You're a dad.
Yeah.
You're an actor.
Yeah.
You're a crypto skeptic. You're writing a book.
Yeah.
I guess my question is, what's the end game with the crypto side of things? And how that kind of compares?
For me?
Yeah, for you.
Yeah.
Like, what's your goal with writing the book? Why are you doing it? Like, what do you want to communicate?
Yeah. It's funny, I talked to my therapist, and he was like, you're not the things you do. You're not the results of the things you do.
That's why I said you're a dad too.
Yeah.
Not that I talked to your therapist.
Oh, no, it's fine. But like,
I don't like it when people consider
you're
your
you.
identity, right? Like
You're you.
Yeah.
You're you. Like, you're Tim.
I'm not just a journalist.
So what I hope to do with the book is tell a story about people and what they want and why they bought crypto. And what we can learn from the failures of crypto and where we might go from here. And back to your point, are there things we can take from blockchain and decentralized technologies that do offer value? And I'm very open to that. And I'm talking to academics and people that know a lot more about that than me.
When you reflect on the rug pulls, the pig butchering that's gone on, how much blame do you place at the feet of regulators?
There's a lot of blame to go around, but it's funny, I'm actually writing that chapter now. A lot. It's been a massive failure across the board, both parties. There's a lot of reasons for that, I think. I don't think there's I think there are simple answers to that question. One of the things that I was struck by when I started to try to understand why this had gotten so big with so little regulation, one of the things that I observed that I thought was just kind of fascinating was the fact that we separate our commodities regulation from our securities regulation, which, as far as I'm aware, we're the only country in the world to do so.
You live in Brooklyn.
Yes.
I live in Brooklyn.
I don't.
Matt Damon lives in Brooklyn.
You won't even. Yes, it's true.
You know where I'm going with this.
Oh God. Yeah.
When you think of celebrities in crypto, you think of celebrities who've endorsed crypto.
Yeah.
Matt Damon, Larry David,
Kim
Paris
Kardashian.
Hilton, Kim Kardashian. I mean, have you ever run into any of these celebrities, given that you're kind of the sole celebrity skeptic? I don't want to say sole, but you're among the most vocal celebrity skeptics. Do you ever run into Matt Damon, for example?
At our weekly meetings?
Yeah, at your weekly meetings?
No, I do not. So I haven't talked to them. So I don't view celebrities as, so the first article that Jacob and I wrote in October of last year was about Kim Kardashian and about the Ethereum Max shilling, which was just pretty obviously scammy. And so it's pretty rewarding, I have to say personally, quite frankly, to be a little indulgent that like almost exactly a year to the day after we wrote that article, the SEC, reached a settlement with her for $1.26 million. But celebrities are just the megaphone that crypto needs in order to get more retail traders into the casinos. Like, they're not. I'm sure the celebrities, run the gamut in terms of their knowledge of cryptocurrency and blockchain technology. But my suspicion is they're not deeply steeped in the.
They haven't all read the white papers.
They have not read the white papers or perhaps taken Gensler's course. They are, they're selling stuff, as celebrities have always sold stuff since there have been celebrities.
Ben McKenzie, thanks for hanging out with us.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
Molly White, Tonantzin Carmona, thanks for joining us. It's good to see you both.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Molly, I want to start with you. I think a lot of people, everyone knows about Web3 is going great now. But I'm interested in your own journey because you have a background in computer science, you have a background in communities. It's kind of strange that you don't love crypto, given that we're talking computer science and communities. Like, what's not to love?
I think crypto doesn't actually help communities in the way that it claims to be. I do care a lot about communities, and I care a lot about them being treated fairly and being educated about what they're getting into. And I don't think crypto does either of those things very well.
Tell us about your background.
Is this live? No, just kidding. It's not live. Yeah.
Okay. So I know that a lot of your research has focused on inequity and sort of how crypto plays into that. So, I mean, taking those comments, would you agree?
So I, like you just said, focus on inequities. I was not a crypto researcher person, didn't think I was going to end up into this space, but I found that there were a lot of like recent reportings, at least around the time I started looking into crypto, with headlines around communities of color really being drawn to cryptocurrencies. And so I really came in extraordinarily curious. I just wanted to know, so how does this work? How does this happen that you have these promises and it actually like comes true? And in doing that research is when I found, one, the promises weren't being met, and then two, it also, this was the space with just a whole range of risks and drawbacks.
Well, in that research, Tonantzin, I'm wondering if there was anything that you found that is promising in the technology, in the concepts to help build a more equitable society. Because the financial system, I mean, is it fair to say that it is exclusionary in some ways?
Oh, 100%. I think one of the things, at least I talk about, is that historically, a lot of communities of color have been excluded from traditional financial institutions. That is absolutely true, but that doesn't mean that crypto is necessarily the solution. I don't agree with the status quo. I believe we should fix the status quo. But then even digging deep into crypto, I don't disagree with the ideas of democratization of finance. I don't disagree with the claims themselves. I disagree with the fact that they're essentially false promises.
And so, Molly, I mean, bringing that forward, the work that you do, sort of chronicling all the risks and drawbacks, when you think about everything that has happened over the past few months, the scams that we have seen, the rugs that have been pulled, what would you
What about the pigs?
The pigs that have been slaughtered.
Did you know about this? Pig butchering? Have you heard of this?
Unfortunately,
I said
yes.
slaughter. God.
That's okay.
Well, in
I
any
think
case,
it's actually called both, so you're good.
same effect at the end of the day. But what's the common denominator there between all these different scams? Because it feels like they've taken a lot of different forms and shapes, but what would you say is the common linkage?
They do take a lot of different forms. And I think they do differ in a lot of ways, but they often rely on the fact that people think crypto is really hard to understand. It's really, technologically complex, and so they're sort of willing to accept that maybe they don't understand it, but that they should still, buy into it. People will often just say, well, I don't really get how it works, but it's promising me these huge returns, and so I'm probably just not smart enough to understand it, but they'll put their money in. And I think people generally are smart enough to understand what's happening in these schemes.
I'm wondering if, Tonantzin, there's any promise to the idea of disintermediation, of getting rid of, quote unquote middleman, a third party, the decentralization here, the idea of people being able to send remittances to other countries without paying huge fees to some sort of third party. Isn't that at least promising?
Right. So I guess your question, really, to me, the thing that struck me was the fact that you said idea. The ideas are promising, but it's when you dig deep into the technology itself, you find that disintermediation, that so-called decentralization. I mean, one could actually quibble with that in and of itself, in that there are intermediaries within the technology itself. You have software developers who make decisions that you essentially have to rely on to make the right decisions, that they have the right incentives to make those decisions, that they don't have conflicts of interest as they're making decisions. You have miners with certain cryptocurrencies that make decisions. So those intermediaries actually exist. And when you zoom out, the very structures or additional technologies and platforms that are being built on top of the blockchain, you have a whole new set of intermediaries.
Molly, there's this funny thing happened yesterday. I was on your website, and there's this good news section, sort of this good news tag. And I was like, oh, I'll click this, and there'll be all the good things that crypto has done. It's not.
No.
It's the last entry, I think, is July. And the good news was that some game developer is not going to use NFTs.
Yes.
So my challenge to you is name something good that has come from all of this.
Well, I think the best thing actually about crypto and everything that has sort of sprung out of it is that it has put the spotlight on a lot of failures in existing systems that we deal with today. So I think a lot of people are actually a lot more aware of issues in the banking system or in, unbanked communities than they might have been if they hadn't started engaging in crypto. And I think that's great.
I want to get your thoughts on a conversation we were having with Matt Levine. And in his big piece on crypto, 40,000 words, Tim and I read all of it, he makes the point that the reason you've seen a lot of TradFi people go into crypto, leave big banks to go into crypto, is because there's so much more room for creativity and innovation rather than waiting for someone way high up at the bank to okay your project. You can just go onto the blockchain, build a smart contract, build some sort of application, just go out and do it. And I mean, maybe in its present state that hasn't produced anything that has any real sort of tentacles into the real economy or hasn't made our lives better necessarily. But when you think about that sort of blue sky thinking that, okay, there's lower guardrails here, maybe it'll produce something wonderful. Does that cross your mind at all?
Well, I think that's one of those things where you sort of have to push back and say, well, why is there so much, why is it so slow to do it in the current system? And it could be that a person is working at a huge bank and there's just a lot of bureaucracy there. But I would guess that, if you're asking why is the traditional financial system really slow, it's probably because of all the regulations that you have to comply with. And it's true that crypto doesn't have that many regulations, and so people are able to, quote unquote, innovate in very interesting ways. But that's also where all the scams and the enormous disasters have been coming from too. And crypto, I think, has been, evangelists for crypto have been making the argument that you can't regulate crypto more strongly or you will squash innovation.
Tonantzin, where do you come down on regulation? Because if there's nothing actually useful there to be regulated, then is it sort of just a waste of time and a waste of resources to even think about regulation there?
That's a great question. So to your point on the regulation, I was just thinking of like New York. I mean, they have a regulatory scheme. It's not perfect by any means, but it's something, and companies haven't left New York. So I think it also kind of just runs counter to the example that like...
Do you mean from a crypto perspective or taxation?
Yeah, from a crypto perspective, like companies are still operating in New York, they're still offering their services, they're still so quote unquote like innovating, and so I just think that kind of helps debunk the argument that regulation is all bad.
Are you frustrated with the slow pace of regulation at this point? I mean, I know that the SEC fined Kim Kardashian $1.3 million, huge, but crypto is here. It's been here for a while. No indication it's going away. And we're still talking about alphabet soup at this point.
I'm enormously frustrated with it. I mean, we've seen sort of piecemeal enforcement, individual schemes that are being cracked down on by the SEC or the DOJ or various other groups, but it's very sort of whack-a-mole at this point.
So Tonantzin, if crypto doesn't solve the problems that you've identified, the problems that you've studied, what does?
Well, it depends on what you're trying.
It depends on which problem?
Right, exactly, because it all varies. So,
I mean, financial exclusion, inequities.
So if you're talking about, let's say, like unbanked or underbanked, it's just to me even fascinating that, again, this gets lumped in with people wanting to use crypto for like wealth building. Like for unbanked or underbanked, what is it exactly we're trying to solve? Is it access to a bank account? Is it access to being able to make financial transactions? Like there are policymakers right now who provide a whole host of solutions. The thing is that many of them don't necessarily require technology. They're policy-based solutions. If we're talking about wealth building, which other people view like crypto as a mechanism for doing that, again, there are other policies that might actually help us do that. And what's fascinating is like in this country, the federal government used to provide ample amount of support, subsidies to actually enhance wealth building. We used to be able to provide support to buy a house, like in mass, we do now, but it's not at the scale that it was before.
Companies used to provide pensions.
Yeah, there used to be like support to go to college, to start a business, all of these things. And then like maybe post 70s, you start to see kind of a decline in that, the dismantling a lot of that support. And so now you have people who in reality don't see a way to build wealth, or if they're excluded, a way to access these systems in a low-cost way. And so part of our work then is to figure out not necessarily the technology that solves this, but what is the pain point, and then let's build from there. And oftentimes it is policy solutions, and we have plenty of academics and researchers that have these, and so what we're really lacking is political will.
Thank you to both of us. Excuse me. Hold on.
We did great.
Hold on. Yeah, we did great. Yeah.
Good job.
Tonantzin Carmona, Molly White, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
That's it.
That's it.
We've done 8 episodes.
I'm kind of bummed.
I'm very bummed.
Yeah.
I hope we get to do this again.
I hope so too.
I just remember there was a time when we first started filming all the way back, 8 weeks ago. Mm-hmm. I asked you your opinion on something. You said, I don't have opinions. I'm a journalist.
Sounds like me.
But come on. After 8 episodes, week in, week out, doing crypto, talking to the people we spoke to, you've got to have an opinion on something.
You're right. And this is something that I have struggled with. And, when I really boil it all down, I truly think that